It is Monday, October 26th, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of CoinMetal. And it was yet another non-virtual get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday. Did some interesting stuff from the guard position today. It's funny is I have a little bit more trouble trying to articulate exactly what we were doing, like versus when I was in gi jiu-jitsu, and I'm not entirely certain why that is. But anyway, we were starting in the full guard position. If you should ever find yourself in a position where you're on the bottom and somebody's in your guard, to break their posture and to bring your leg up so you can get them in the good old rubber guard, and get an overhook on the left hand side. Of course, if you're doing it with your left leg on their back. And anyway, I kept having a lot of trouble on it because there's one part on it where you tuck in their elbow, your opponent's elbow, and then you squeeze in with your knee, and then you've got a hold of their wrist with like your right hand, and you squeeze in with your right knee on their shoulder, and then you hook your ankle up over their back, and then you just cross your ankles. You don't necessarily have to have like a triangle kind of grip, just as long as you've got like your hamstrings going up over their shoulder. And my partner and I both had a lot of trouble on that one because we're both kind of big guys, so not exactly the most flexible between either one of us. And he also has the same trouble that I do with regard to properly positioning your hips in orientation to your opponent's shoulders. You know, it's like either we're too far down or too far up. And so getting that elbow tucked right, it's very important that you try and get that tucked in there before you even break your opponent's posture. But we weren't doing it that way. I think that probably would have been a better entry into it. It's like if you go a 2-on-1 and you grab it would be like their left hand, maybe grabbing it to where you have like your overhand grip, or like a baseball kind of grip, baseball bat kind of grip, and then you kind of cup your hand in their elbow and then push their wrist up with your right hand. And so now you've got that arm pinned between you and your opponent. And then after you've got that tucked in, reach up, grab the neck, and pull down on it to where you've got your opponent now collapsed over that arm. And then you bring the knee up. And then you bring the knee up to where you can get it up over their back. And I think that would probably get the elbow in the right position a lot more often than the way we were doing it, only because, like I said, we're both bigger guys. And so for some reason, lining that up right was a little more difficult for both of us. But after I remembered to get the collapsed arm over their other arm, it was a lot easier for me to grab the thumb, keeping the thumb pointed directly up, and then extending into a armbar position. But anyway, I had a lot of trouble with that. And it seemed like it was easier for me than it was for my teammate, but nonetheless, I still had a lot of trouble with it. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to try and get up on my shoulder, up on my elbow to do it, which probably would have helped also. But I don't know. I think if I do try that again, I want to try it where I'm going a double grip on that left arm, and like yank it over to my left shoulder, and maybe then pull it down at the elbow, and then cup the back of my opponent's neck after that. I don't know. I think that would probably work really good. and you just like you go 2 on 1 and then like extend it out towards your left shoulder, and then you take your left hand and hook around the elbow, and then you just pull. You use your right hand as like a pivot point, and you hold it to your chest and then pull their elbow across your chest. And so now you've collapsed their torso onto yours, and it brings that neck a lot closer. Then you just reach up with the hand, you keep the elbow tucked, you reach up with the hand up over the shoulder, and you hook over the top of the neck. And I think that would probably make it easier, especially if I have like my left foot on their hip, to kind of push the distance out right to get my right leg up over that shoulder. I think that might have been a better way to go about it. I might try it next time. Yeah, that's the thing about jiu-jitsu, is there is so much variance to it, But I think that could really work, especially if you had taken the opportunity to get the overhook first, maybe. Or I don't know. I'll have to work with it, because I think it's possible to get the overhook, and with the same hand that your left arm, if you've got your left arm overhooked, to reach through and grab the right elbow and hold it while you've got the other arm overhooked. I think it's possible to do that, and I think doing so would probably make that position even easier. I don't know. I'll have to work with it. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. I know it's kind of short, and like I said, I have a little bit of trouble articulating everything that we went through. And we did things like we started with just the triangle, which I'm going to need to do that like for a year, just to get the hip position proper with the shoulders. I was wearing gi pants today, and triangles are always easier with gi pants on. It's just that much tighter, But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to work on it, figure out how to articulate it better or something. I don't know. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music, and we're going to start off with Body Count. But which song? And I think I want to go with something off of Bloodlust. And where is it? Here we go. Body Count, Bloodlust, First Dance, here on CoinMetal.
Since the beginning of time, humans have killed each other because they...
And that was Fear Factory with Soul Hacker. And so, as far as where we're going to go today, I actually did farm up a whole bunch of tabs, and that was kind of an intentional pun. But yeah, got plenty of tabs, got plenty of stuff we're going to cover today. So, let's get into it. The first thing I got here is it's on CoinDesk, and yeah, I think this is really interesting. I keep telling you guys that there is no intrinsic way to bind an item on a blockchain and a physical item. There really isn't. I mean, you can have all kinds of tracking systems, and you can have all kinds of IDs and all that, but there really isn't any way to link the two together. You can have an ID assigned to a physical item, but whether or not that identification will confer to you any additional control over whether or not the item itself is reproduced, what the item is used for, so on and so no. None of that shit's going to matter. But anyway, so I got this thing here. It's on CoinDesk.com. From DeFi to DOps, how public blockchains could replace ERP systems. This is, I do like that they're talking about public blockchains doing that function, though. So that's a really important distinction. Continuing on, this is authored on October 26, 2020 at 1834 UTC. continuing on. This is an opinion piece by Paul Brody. So yes, penis. Enterprise Resource Planning, ERP, is simultaneously one of the most transformational technologies for modern business and also one of the most boring. Quite simply, ERP is the glue that holds modern enterprises together, connecting business processes across large enterprises in a standardized way. That said, there is also nothing magical about ERP. It simply combines two things: transactional data, purchases, sales, and inventory levels, with business rules and process. The results are simple, but the technology itself is has immensely powerful capabilities. For instance, automatically reordering supplies when an inventory runs low without human intervention. With blockchain technology, we are entering the era of decentralized ERP-like apps that can span multiple enterprises, but also share data and logic, in turn automating and digitizing commerce. Paul Brody is EY's global innovation leader for blockchain. The views reflected in this article are his. In an always-on digital environment, this doesn't seem very new or unusual. That's because when it comes to truly digital supply chains, most companies are faking it, not making it. The secret truth about digital commerce is that it usually comes to a screeching halt at the enterprise door. It's not uncommon for a digital system to create a purchase order using PDF software, which is emailed to a supplier, only for it to be scanned into their system using a process called optical character recognition. This digital scanning process is only one step above printing and faxing. Within the digital supply chain, electronic data exchange, EDI, is one step above OCR, but it only allows for static communication, and only between two parties. Furthermore, it doesn't support any kind of shared business logic or process. To understand what a big deal this is, and to get a sense of how much is at stake, it is useful to step back and define how big the impact of ERP has been. When I joined McKinsey & Co. in 1995, process change was something you put on paper and into manuals. With the widespread deployment of ERP, the reality is that business processes, if they exist, really only exist in software. If you want to put a product on sale at 500 stores across the country or around the world, it can likely only be achieved with end-to-end software. Whether forecasting the sale events or planning increased inventory and making sure price reductions happen at the cash register, if it doesn't happen with enterprise software, it probably won't happen at all. Thanks to ERP, the efficiencies driven by a single retailer alone are thought to have cut the cost of living in the U.S. for the average person by about $895 per year. ERP systems have such a huge impact because they allow companies to make good on their operating scale. Companies that are integrated from end to end can also negotiate significantly lower prices with suppliers. Their promise to buy only from a preferred supplier is much more credible because ERP systems will simply block purchases from unauthorized suppliers, something that used to happen routinely before digital systems were introduced. ERPs can also carry less inventory and have lower shipping costs as they track inventory levels and plan replenishment operations each day. Quote, instead of suppliers having to integrate with customized systems in large enterprises, they can instead interact with standardized apps and tokens on the public blockchain network. What's a public blockchain network, I wonder? Exciting, no? High impact, yes. The benefits associated with these systems have traditionally been limited to the largest companies because each large enterprise has its own digital hub for collaboration. If you're a supplier and you want to sell to a big retailer, be prepared to join the supplier's network, which is not free. Each integration brings with it both efficiency and long-term cost commitments. For instance, smaller companies are often overwhelmed by these types of demands, but ERP can remove that hurdle. Blockchain technology has the potential to change the dynamics of system integrations. Instead of suppliers having to integrate with customized systems in large enterprises, they can instead interact with standardized apps and tokens on the public blockchain network. Again, what the fuck is the public blockchain network? DOPS, decentralized operations applications, could take hold. Want to have automated replenishment of your inventory? There's a DOPS app for that. Ensuring a shipment between two locations? There's a DOPS app for that. Managing warehouse space that you rent from a third party? Same again. DOPS applications will take the two main components of ERP, shared facts and shared business logic, and enable them to operate between enterprises and across enterprise boundaries. This will allow for truly digital end-to-end supply chains without having to worry about centralized entities spying on and monetizing the data flowing between companies. How much might the shift to truly digital supply chains be worth? Trillions of dollars. Given that nearly everything we buy today passes through multiple hands before it arrives in your home, there is a good chance that increased efficiency is possible at every step of the process. Entire industries had been built and companies transformed on their implementation of ERP. The impact of decentralized operations is likely to be just as large. And while nearly every large company currently has some form of an ERP system, almost none of them use DOPS applications. So, we are just at the beginning of this transformation. Yeah. I think that this article, it leaves out a lot of stuff. For one thing, what is the public blockchain network? What is it? How is it a public blockchain if I'm unaware of it? You know, I mean, where does it exist? Who's mining it? It's not a blockchain if it doesn't have miners. Otherwise, it's just a fucking decentralized database. So again, what and who is the public blockchain network? And so I think that you know, you got to start with that. You know, who are the constituents of this public blockchain network? Who are the miners? Who are the node providers? And see, I think that when you hammer through that one, you're going to really help out people who are trying to assess the quality of your information. Like, you know, if I'm trying to evaluate Amazon's data, you know, am I trusting that Amazon is publicly facing, you know, just positive data? They're not giving me the negative side to it, or, you know, maybe not accurately counting their costs, or, you know, something to that effect. If I'm not a miner on it, I probably can't verify these things. Now, of course, they'll probably have a blockchain explorer, but again, how do we know that that's not just like some way to query their database? You know, I mean, you're not a participant on the network, so you're trusting that the network itself is consisting of independent miners, making it a quote-unquote public blockchain. You know, and again, what's the token involved here? What's the coin? Is it a proof of work coin? Is it a proof of stake coin? Is it an ICO? Is it some fucking DeFi project? What is it? And so, again, I think that when you take this stuff into account, these questions that I'm posing, if you start taking them into account, the idea of DOps running on somebody else's blockchain is no better than Amazon's internal tracking system. It's some proprietary shit. But this again, it really depends on the implementation. See, for a business to utilize cryptocurrencies to their advantages, and I say advantages because there's more than one advantage to doing it. I mean, you can use it for a wide variety of things, but that use is independent. I mean, it's not dependent upon how other people use it. You could be publicly broadcasting transaction data or information that's associated with transactions that is disclosing to everybody else, who owns what, as far as like a real estate deal, or say, I guess some product that you manufacture, and you can do it down to the individual unit. And it really sounds cool to be able to do that. But what is the utility of doing that is the question. What is the use of it? Is it to say that the person who bought it really doesn't own it, and all the control over it is given to somebody else? And we got to be able to track it on the planet and whatever, so it's got its own little ID. And I mean, what's the utility of it? And I think in the longer term, we're going to find out that keeping track of shit like that, beyond just getting it from point A to point B, really doesn't have any utility. That total informational awareness really doesn't matter if you're not utilizing the data for a specific purpose. And what that might be, so you can spy and surveil on people? What fucking use is that? I mean, are you going to detect some sort of enemy that you're not going to be able to detect any other way? I say no. I say there's more than enough surveillance activity and capability out there that such scrutiny is absolutely unnecessary. You can't really stop the transaction after it's happened. You might be able to intervene with the products. You might be able to stop them from going from one person to another. But you can't actually stop the transaction, and especially if it's happening publicly on a public blockchain, on a publicly mined cryptocurrency. But anyway, and so, it's really interesting to me that many people commenting about this space, they're so stuck with the old ideas. The idea that there is some entity out there that you can implicitly trust, regardless of what that entity actually is. That there is a entity, be it the state, be it a bank, be it a federal authority, whatever. That there is somebody that you can invest that trust in. And regardless of how many times that's proven to be absolutely incorrect, they still hold this belief. And they still keep trying to reintroduce trust into the system, into cryptocurrencies. And again, we see that that's a bad idea. As soon as you start getting really far off the road with regard to transacting your monetary value that typically would be transacted on a blockchain, would be recorded on a blockchain, and happen exclusively there, as soon as they start introducing more trust and getting away from that system, we start running into problems. So I got this thing here, it's on Coindesk.com. Harvest Finance token plummets 65% after attack saps DeFi site of TVL. And this is authored on October 26, 2020 at 5:28 UTC. And this is authored by William Foxley. So here we go. A possible exploit in decentralized finance DeFi protocol Harvest Finance has sent the platform's native token farm tumbling by 65% in less than an hour, according to CoinGecko. According to reports surfacing early Monday, upwards of $25 million in value has been drained from Harvest Finance pools and swapped for RenBTC, RBTC, by an unknown attacker. Other funds have been mixing through Tornado Cash and Ethereum obfuscation software. Following the attack, investors appear to have pulled roughly $350 million from the site. Quote, "We're working actively on the issue of mitigating the economic attack on the stablecoin and BTC pools, and will update in this thread in real time as soon as additional details are available," the anonymous team behind Harvest Finance said in a tweet. And, we're going to go to that right now. The team further said, quote, "The economic attack was made possible by manipulating stablecoin prices on Curve Finance, another DeFi protocol that Harvest Finance contracts interact with." The project's admin claimed to have withdrawn 100% of stablecoin and BTC Curve strategy funds to the vault and, quote, "are moving to block deposits to the stablecoin and BTC vault," the Harvest team said in the project's Discord at 4:45 UTC. Harvest Finance did not return questions by press time. The attack comes after DeFi analyst Chris Black claimed Harvest Finance's administrators held an quote, "admin key that can drain funds locked in the protocol's contracts." It's unclear at this stage if in the exploit what the role the admin key or the anonymous team behind the protocol have to do with the sudden drain in assets. Black did not return a request for comment by press time. Harvest Finance had over $1 billion in total value locked just prior to the possible exploit having been unveiled. TVL has dropped to $673 million as of 5 UTC, according to DeFi Pulse. This is a developing story and will be updated when more is known. Let's check out these tweets. Let's see. Some info on developing Harvest Finance exploit. 24 million exploited. Etherscan 2.55 million sent back to deployer. Hacker cashed out almost all of it via RenBTC and Tornado in the last hour. And that was approximately 23 hours ago. Let's see. And following this thread a little bit. No, we don't want that. Ouch, that's a lot of money. Makes Chris Blick look like a fucking genius. He was warned about 2 days ago not to use Harvest Shit Show. They didn't use and Crypto Mickey says they didn't use the admin keys. He didn't warn about this curve pool exploit. That would have been genius. Let's see here. Reply either way. It's funny as fuck. It's crypto is what it is. Let's see. Jai Cut says, this is a joke, right? Though it is interesting how well prepared the exploit was. 9 minutes, just needed to call a different function / method for each TX they wanted to do. Wow. Let's see. YBTC Prodigy says, I still don't understand why the hacker would send back 2.5 million. Audrey says, is it a joke to send hacked funds to the creator or the smart contract to appreciate the work having been done? Mad Eyes SB says, how can you still think positive like that? Oh, let's see. Audrey says this is not the first time they do return to some to the creators. I'm not positive, but it sounds like a game. Yeah, thanks a lot. So long, and thanks for all the fish. Let's see here. And looks like that's about that. Let's see what the other one is. Harvest Finance says, we are working actively on the issue of mitigating the economic attack on the stablecoin and BTC pools, and will update in this thread in real time as soon as additional details are available. The next one is, the economic attack was performed through the Curve Y pool, stretching the price of the stablecoins in Curve out of proportion and depositing and withdrawing a large amount of assets through Harvest. To protect users, we pulled the pool and BTC strategy funds to the vault. At this point, all stablecoin and BTC funds are in the vault, not deployed in strategy. No pools are affected. To be specific, to protect users, 100% of stablecoin. Yeah, we got that. Like other arbitrage economic attacks, this one originated with a large flash loan and manipulated prices on one money Lego Curve Y pool to drain another money algo USDT or FUSDT FUSDC many times. The attacker then converted the funds to REN BTC and exited to BTC. Yeah, this is what you get for all that second layer bullshit. Like other flash loan attacks, the attacker did not give time to respond, performing the attack in 7 minutes end to end. Wallet of the attacker exiting through REN BTC, and it gives us a nice little address there so we can check it on the blockchain. Harvest Finance says the attacker sent back $2,478,549.94 to the developer in the form of USDT and USDC. This will be distributed to the affected depositors pro rata using a snapshot. G. Ravi says people don't know who is behind Harvest. Don't try to be over smart and don't try to manipulate the things. Why are you trying to create FUD about Curve Finance? Curve Finance is the second largest DeFi project, and everyone knows that. Harvest founder is not Satoshi. First, you and team should identify yourselves to the community. They're going to end up getting fucking ID'd if they manage to evacuate $24 million from the pools before these assholes could do anything about it. Yeah. Let's see here. Any more? Is this the sort of issue you'd expect to be uncovered in a smart contract audit? And that was Grant Gulliverson. Probably. You know, what's funny is I read somewhere that that exploit finders or exploit auditors are supposedly like really in demand right now, and I would argue that that's probably a good job to try and get into these days, because it doesn't seem like these kids are going to stop trying to do DeFi shit, and so they're going to run into more exploits, and being able to prevent them or save people money is probably a good thing. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And you know, I've been dying to play some Slipknot. I don't know why, but I think it's time. And so, here we go. Everything Ends by Slipknot here on CoinMetal. And that was Static X with Shock Treatment. And so, where we're going next, where is it here? Yeah, so, got this thing on CoinGeek.com. DeFi project Harvest exploited for over $24 million. Another day, another DeFi hack early this morning. Harvest farm was exploited for over $24 million. The exploit took place just a few hours after DeFi analyst Chris Black published a statement that warned of vulnerabilities in the Harvest protocol. Harvest DeFi is still over 1 billion, still a non-team, blah blah blah. Oh wait, here we go. Still a non-team with admin key that can drain funds, still unknown security of key, still blocking me on Twitter, still banning me from Discord. Response: trust them cause 1 billion is, quote, not useful and don't bother us. And it gives us a pic of a Twitter. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, yeah, okay. So anyway, the attacker was able to exploit Harvest by manipulating stablecoin prices on the contracts that the Harvest protocol interacts with. Once the attacker manipulated the stablecoin prices to the point where they were in their favor, the hacker drained Harvest protocol's liquidity pools and subsequently converted the stolen funds to REN BTC. Not many technical details are known about the hack at the moment, but the Harvest team has put up a $100,000 bounty that will go to the individual who can identify the hacker, and says they will release a post-mortem report sometime today. DeFi has a few loopholes. This is a quote. Pre-DeFi era smart contracts on Ethereum would get exploited due to lack of code analysis tools and lack of expert auditors. Now the growing problem is economic attacks that exploit interactions between different smart contracts. ETH's complexity remains a double-edged sword. And that was by Jameson Lopp, October 26, 2020. Many DeFi smart contracts rely on external smart contracts, which gives hackers multiple attack vectors. When a smart contract must communicate with other smart contracts, it no longer matters if the main smart contract you are interacting with is secure. Attackers, like the individuals who exploited Harvest this morning, can manipulate the smart contracts that the main contract communicates with to manipulate prices and subsequently drain the liquidity pool or withdrawal of funds. Many DeFi exploits have taken place this year, and in every instance, a quote, hack or breach never actually occurred. Instead, the attacker had a deep understanding of how the DeFi protocol worked, as well as which external smart contracts the main contract communicated with, and then used that knowledge to pull all the strings attached to the main contract to make away with millions in stolen funds. When it comes to DeFi, proceed with caution. Most DeFi protocols have no real business model, have not been code audited, and were only created to make the founding team a few dollars. With such an insecure infrastructure and no real interest in creating long-term business, you should expect more DeFi exploits and rug pulls to happen in the DeFi space. Yeah, always proceed with caution, man. It's your money, and you cannot trust it to other people. You cannot trust it to code. And the more we see people testing that possibility, thinking that, hey, they figured it out this time. They can guarantee us that there's no exploits and there's no issues with this. And as soon as you buy into that, it happens. You get exploited. There goes your money. So too bad, so sad. Move on to the next one. As long as people have that kind of attitude with their funds, they will continue to get ganked. And these are low-level hacks. I mean, they really shouldn't even be possible. But again, because most of the kids investing, and I do call them kids because most of them are kids, investing in these projects don't have the slightest fucking clue what they're investing in. And really, this isn't a hit on you. We're all ignorant of something in crypto. It's why I won't call myself a crypto expert, even though I probably know more about this space than most people. But at the same time, I won't pump any DeFi projects. I've talked about a few of them on this show, but that's to expose you guys to them. And most of the time I'm saying at the end, I don't really trust this thing. I won't be putting any of my money in it, but I leave that to you. Because I didn't find out what I know about crypto by somebody else telling me. I found it out by jumping into the shit. And to some extent I do rely on data that I get on a project, whether it be a white paper or whether it be, tips that I get from other people. But I don't immediately act on any kind of tips, and I'm not really one of those investors that's just out for the new shiny. I am a value investor. When I'm investing in a cryptocurrency, it's typically because I see some value in it. Sometimes it's just because I'm looking at the TA on it, and I'm like, there's no way in hell this thing isn't going to go up sometime in the future. And there are a few of those coins, but I don't mention them on this show like that. Like I said, I leave that stuff to you. And in all honesty, anybody who would try and take it away from you is probably trying to game your trust, specifically to burn you sometime in the future. And sometimes you might run into a friend that knows something that you don't, and they're willing to help you out and whatnot. But a lot of people in this space, they're looking out for their own interests. And if you read the Bitcoin white paper, you understand that is the case. This is the game. It is your self-interest. You mine a coin because you believe in it. You invest in a coin because you believe in it. And if you're not investing in it on those bases, you're probably going to lose your money. Because the people that you're investing with are being as cavalier on the investment side of whatever project it is. And there is an investment side on it. And so you can rest assured that they've probably been just as cavalier about writing out their code. Yeah, like I said, I found something somewhere, and I wish I could remember where I found it, but they were basically saying that there's a woeful dearth. I mean, like there are no, and I don't know that dearth is the right word, that there are no auditors out there auditing this code. I mean, that there have been a few projects, like I think it was Uniswap, that they'd gone through some effort to get their shit audited. But again, you're coming back down to the auditor, the competency of them. Are they really an auditor? How many projects have they done? What are the quality of the projects that they've done? What are the projects they've operated on still in operation? I had one here, and I closed it, I think. But it was about this one auditor and how everybody keeps tanking. Let me see if I can find that. I'll look for it on the other side of during the music break. But basically it was saying that this one auditor, had given rave reviews of all these companies, and every single one of them is imploding now. And so it's like, how many times do you have to get burned like that? How many times Do you have to put a fucking intermediary in between you and the thing that you're investing in or whatever to try and understand it or whatever, or maybe, best guide your investment in it, only to have turn around a couple years into this entity's success and find out that they've been spoofing it. They haven't been as honest as they should have been in their auditing. They just gave everybody a rubber stamp of approval and just said, yeah, just pay us our fee. You're good. Get the fuck out of here. And the reciprocal from that is they get cavalier on the way that they judge the investment. People like you and me invest in full trust of their word. They've got this reputation. We trust in it, and then we get burned because, again, the assumption is that they will just say some words, they will be correct, and they will deserve the money that they're getting. They'll deserve the fee because they've actually done the due diligence, and everybody involved is investing, with full transparency. And yet they still tank. It's kind of weird. Anyway, so we've gone through DeFi, and we're going to keep going through that. As long as you guys keep trusting projects like that, you're going to keep getting bit in the ass. Anyway, I got this thing here. It's on Cointelegraph.com. Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse opposes Coinbase's no politics policy. And this is by Muhammad Musharraf. So yes, penis. And this is authored 18 hours ago. Let me get this fucking thing out of here. And Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of blockchain-based payments firm Ripple, disagrees with Coinbase's new policy restricting its employees from engaging in political discussions at work. Coinbase's CEO Brian Armstrong first announced the, quote, apolitical policy in a blog post on September 27th. He encouraged Coinbase employees not to indulge in, quote, political discussion and keep their focus on the company's mission of creating an open financial system for the world. Garlinghouse disagrees, telling CNBC that technology companies have an obligation to contribute to solving societal issues. Garlinghouse said that technology companies and platforms have made some societal problems worse, so they must also be willing to work on solutions for them. As an example, he said, Ripple was taking YouTube to court for failing to flag scam giveaway videos that lured viewers into sending thousands of dollars in Ripple's associated cryptocurrency, XRP. He added that Ripple didn't need to indulge in the legalities of the matter, as it wouldn't help the company, but stressed that tech companies must take responsibility and ownership of the problems to which they are contributing. Coinbase has been bleeding employees ever since Armstrong instituted the controversial policy change, with some high-level execs leaving the firm. Let's check further in that. And this is referring back to an article by Gareth Jenkinson. And I seem to recall some mention of this, but I just want to cover this for some context. And this is authored on October 18th, so really not all that long ago. The curious case of Coinbase, employees driven out by a political stance. America's largest cryptocurrency exchange made headlines over the past few weeks for an internal culture change that effectively told employees that within its walls. Furthermore, a recently leaked audio apparently reveals that most employees approve of the new direction. The quote apolitical stance that is being adopted by the company was announced by CEO Brian Armstrong in a published post on the exchange's Medium platform on September 27th. Armstrong's message cited the incredibly difficult year that has hamstrung many economies, companies, and individuals around the world, which has also led to a spring of various societal issues. In an American context, the tragedy of George Floyd caused by the brutal treatment of a Minneapolis police officer in May 2020 sparked the Black Lives Matter movement and subsequent protests and demonstrations across the country. Many Americans decided to band together and speak out against abuse and inequality along the lines of race. Laser focused. Armstrong's post outlines the company's desire to be laser focused on achieving its mission, which is to create an open financial system for the world by giving people access to cryptocurrency in order to drive economic freedom. The CEO then highlighted his belief that allowing employees to spend time on social activism and other causes would hamper the company's goals to build its own capacity, products, and services. Armstrong highlights other Silicon Valley companies that actively encourage and engage in social activism before explaining why Coinbase has opted for a different approach. Quote, "The reason is that while I think these efforts are well-intentioned, they have the potential to destroy a lot of value at most companies, both by being a distraction and by creating internal division." Furthermore, according to the CEO, quote, "Most employees don't want to work in these divisive environments." He further stated that employees that, quote, "want the workplace to be a refuge from the division that is increasingly present in the world." Thus, Armstrong made it clear that Coinbase would focus minimally on causes not directly related to the mission, which include policy decisions, nonprofit work, broader societal issues, and political causes. The CEO did concede that the company may engage in governmental policy relating to cryptocurrencies, but wouldn't engage in issues unrelated to the industry. Coinbase will also continue to contribute its pledge 1% program and give Crypto.org, but would not participate further on that front. 5% of employees opt for a severance package. Following his Medium blog post, Armstrong an internal email to... Following his Medium blog post, Armstrong sent an internal email to staff that indicated that any individuals who are unhappy with the company's changing culture policy could opt for a severance package to leave the company. The letter offered a 4-month payment package for staff who had worked for the company for less than 3 years. Employees who worked at Coinbase for more than 3 years would be up for a 6-month payment package. Those opting for the packages would also receive 6 months medical aid coverage through the U.S. government's program. The letter was reportedly sent to staff on September 30th, and those interested in accepting a severance package were given a week to make a final decision and submit the required documentation before the deadline of October 7th. Despite the relatively short time frame, Armstrong revealed that in a following blog post on October 8th, the number accounted for 5% of Coinbase's employee numbers, while the CEO also stated that more employees had expressed interest in leaving. Among those leaving the company was the Vice President of Business and Data, Dan Yu, who announced his departure in a LinkedIn on October 7th. The VP said that he would stay on at Coinbase to the end of 2020 to manage a transition before his departure. Clem Freeman, a software engineer at Coinbase, also publicly announced that he would be leaving the company on Twitter, saying he disagreed with, quote, some of the changes made recently by leadership. Some personal news. This Friday will be my last day at Coinbase. I disagree with some of the changes made recently by leadership, and so I've decided to move on. I'm going to take some time off to recharge. I don't know where I'm going next, but I'm excited to find out. Clem Freeman. Cointelegraph reached out to Freeman and you for comment, but has not received a reply from either individual. The aftermath. The recent events at Coinbase and the subsequent reactions are still ongoing, and it's not entirely clear-cut as to what the greater impact on the business will be. From an ideological sense, the move has been met with varying commentaries on reactions from notable persons in the wider crypto community. Coinbase was the recipient of an undisclosed investment from world-renowned tennis star Serena Williams and her Serena Ventures VC firm, which was. The firm's logo was featured on the Serena Ventures website up until this month, where the Coinbase logo has seemingly been removed. With Coinbase seemingly taken off the list of beneficiaries, it seems their newly revised culture stance is at odds with Williams' investment firm. Coinbase's apolitical stance also, who highlighted his belief that Bitcoin acts as direct activism against an unverifiable and exclusionary financial system, and that Coinbase had seemingly failed to recognize societal issues linked to its own customers' use of the platform. The company drew further criticism after audio from an internal meeting was in which it was alleged that Coinbase was accused of, quote, stunting internal discussion and forcing employees to delete political messages on the company's Slack group. Overall, there are a plethora of different opinions toward Coinbase's apolitical stance. Some have hailed the, quote, business focus, while others have hit out at the seeming lack of regard for employees' social and cultural stances. Nevertheless, the company forges on, bidding farewell to those who have chosen to disembark at a crucial crossroads in the Coinbase journey. In some cases, you are doomed if you do, and doomed if you don't. This phrase seems particularly poignant in the curious case of Coinbase. Yeah. I think that, you are damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. Although the damned if you don't isn't actually certain. And I think that's a problem that not many are. I guess that's the point in which many people falter on, where they fail to understand that failure is not a certainty if you don't. The idea that these people who were employed at Coinbase had to cease being people. I don't think that's all that correct. But I wanted to dig into this thing. But we have other stuff on the grill. Speaking of cuts, political-based ones at that, on CoinDesk.com, PayPal cuts service to crypto-funded domain registrar hosting right-wing sites. And this is authored on October 26, 2020 at 10:13 UTC. And it's by Daniel Palmer. PayPal has stopped working with controversial domain registrar and hosting service Epic, a company providing services to far-right groups. A report by Mashable on Saturday said Epic claimed in open letters that you know what? Fuck this guy. He did it in bullet points. I hate bullet points. This is on Mashable.com. Home to Proud Boys domain, Gab, and other right-wing sites, posts unhinged letters after PayPal cuts ties. And this is by Matt Binder. It was authored 3 days ago. PayPal, Hunter Biden, Bloomberg News, and several Avengers were targeted in a series of unhinged open letters from ePic after PayPal terminated its account. The domain registrar, whose CEO once defended David Duke on a white nationalist podcast, is home to Gab and other far-right websites, and formerly hosted 8chan. It also hosts the domain of the former website of the violent far-right Proud Boys. Now, that's a characterization I don't necessarily believe in, which was recently spoofed in emails threatening Democratic voters. ePic claimed it was cut off due to, quote, anti-conservative bias. PayPal said it had nothing to do with political ideology, but was instead due to financial risk issues. Quote, PayPal has sophisticated risk controls in place to alert our teams to potentially violative activity occurring on our platforms, said a PayPal spokesperson in a statement to Mashable. Quote, the company independently reviews each matter and bases its decision on the management of risk and compliance with our long-standing user agreement. A source close to this situation put the issue more bluntly: money laundering. The source said the problem lies with ePic's digital currency. The domain registrar runs its own, quote, alternative currency called Masterbucks, which can be used to purchase products sold by ePic or converted into US dollars. According to the source, ePic has not gone through the appropriate legal steps to run Masterbucks and was encouraging tax evasion. An archived version of Masterbucks page promotes its, quote, tax advantages. Our solution is an alternative currency, Masterbucks. How can I use my Masterbucks? Masterbucks can be used on any of the transactions within ePic network. Masterbucks can also be converted to the US dollar or into services or domain purchases from ePic and ePic approved partners. There is no fee to join. Customers with an ePic account are automatically enabled for Masterbucks transactions using the same sign-in credentials. Masterbucks never expire and are fully transferable. Interesting. References to tax advantages do not appear on the current version of ePic's Masterbucks website. Our solution is an alternative currency, blah, 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 and I'm not going to go through that again. ePic was informed of these issues over a month ago by PayPal, according to the source. The payment processor attempted to work with ePic to fix the situation before terminating the domain registrar's PayPal account last weekend. Earlier this week, ePic publicly aired its disputes with PayPal on its blog. The company also uploaded 3 open letters to its website. According to one letter penned by ePic's SVP of Strategy and Communications, Robert Davis, PayPal inquired about offshore accounts, money transmission licenses, and other queries related to cross-border activities and law enforcement. Quote, the questions were absolutely absurd and well outside any knowledge or experience we have as a domain registrar, says Davis. The letters go on to accuse PayPal of closing ePic's accounts for political reasons and make no mention of Masterbucks. Quote, it would appear that in a direct effort to silence conservative voices, PayPal has terminated our payment services just 2 weeks before a presidential election, reads a second open letter. The right wing has long accused both tech companies of anti-conservative bias. Experts say the claims are unfounded. The letters got even more bizarre, railing against former Vice President Joe Biden's son and the Democratic Party. Quote, in the wake of damning evidence about Hunter Biden that threatens to expose elements of the DNC for being overtly anti-American, PayPal has now seemingly moved into an aggressive phase of delivering brutal consequences for those who stand for truth, it reads. Jesus Christ. Why not just make a cross and climb up on it, man? Davis appears to be referencing Facebook and Twitter's decision last week to restrict the sharing of a New York Post story alleging corruption on both the part of Joe Biden and his son Hunter. It should be noted that numerous staff reports for the Post have distanced themselves from the report. While 2 of the 3 ePIC open letters are addressed to PayPal, the third is directed to a Bloomberg reporter. It claims the reporter reached out to ePIC CEO Rob Monster for a story involving domains registered with the company. It's unclear what domains they may have inquired about. Mashable reached out to the reporter and will update the story if they respond. Mashable did, however, find that officialproudboys.com is currently registered with ePIC. It made national news this week after threatening emails made it look like they were sent from the domain ended up in the inboxes of likely Joe Biden voters. U.S. officials blamed Iran for the emails, but did not show any proof to support that conclusion. The domain was previously officially associated with the Proud Boys. The open letter railed against CNN, the Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC, and Chris Evans and Mark Ruffalo of Marvel's The Avengers. Davis accused Hollywood of protecting child molesters and then claimed Chris Evans sent pictures of his penis to children over Twitter, seemingly a reference to the actor accidentally posting private photos on his public Twitter account, for which he later apologized. Davis then ranted about the Hulk. We can only assume that he meant Mark Ruffalo spreading, quote, misleading climate data. The obsession of child abuse within, quote, elite, political, and Hollywood circles overlaps with QAnon conspiracy, theory, which spreads readily on sites using ePIC services. ePIC also shared links to blog posts attacking PayPal and then GoDaddy. The number of domains registered under ePIC have doubled in the past year. The company claims to manage 2 million domain names. However, public records show only around 600,000 domains registered under ePIC. If the name of the company sounds familiar, it's because ePIC made national headlines in August of 2019 after a mass shooting in El Paso, Texas, that left 23 people dead. Prior to the shooting, the killer had posted his intentions, as well as a racist manifesto, on the image board 8chan. ePIC originally defended its decision to host the domain, but later cut ties with 8chan. The company is still providing services for far-right websites and platforms such as Gab and BitChute. Yeah, well, that's what happens when entities like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Google decide to start deplatforming people. They look for other places to go. And if one entity is willing to host them, while a number of other entities are unwilling to host them due to coercion or groupthink or whatever the underlying reason may be, the fact is that yes, they gathered into a aggregator or a service provider or domain name service provider. Is not surprising, But I will expect this kind of thing to continue. And, ultimately they'll end up using cryptocurrencies to circumvent everything. And whether it's all tied to Bitcoin or not, I don't know. Or would be tied to Bitcoin, again, I don't know. There was a transaction, I think it went through today, 88,000 Bitcoin transacted for about $4 was the transaction fee on that. That could have just as easily been ePIC's annual money. They might have bought 88,000 Bitcoin and now they're going to be able to fund ops on the back of those Bitcoin as they appreciate against the US dollar. It's entirely possible. No denying it. But yeah, so I think this is one of the places where cryptocurrencies are going to make a really big difference over the next 10 years, is that we're going to continue to see this, where certain entities will use social media and whatever regulatory apparatus they may have in place to exert control over the public sphere, whether it be in social media or finance or elsewhere. And the reaction is going to be that people will migrate to decentralized systems, entirely public systems, knowing that government entities and corporate entities won't be able to interfere with their finances anymore. And the points where it becomes too expensive to use things like Bitcoin or Ethereum, they will switch to using other publicly recognized cryptocurrencies that are on exchanges out there. And where there is need for more exchanges that don't have the drag or friction of things like AML or KYC, they will go to them. Especially as those interfaces are utilized more to contain, quote, undesirables, people that were kicked out of the official banking system, were kicked off of the dominant social media platforms. They will persist, especially if they actually have a draw, if they actually have an organic market out there for their ideas or their currency or their products or whatever it may be. And I think this is one of the lessons that we are going to learn over the next 10 years, is that the market wants what the market wants, and the market will find a way. The less you stand in its way, the more money you'll make off of it. And that's pretty much about it. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And gosh, I had some news. I just got this album recently by Slayer, and I really should have had it a long time ago. I did have it a long time ago in both LP form and tape form, but recently I got it in CD form too. So let me see if I can drag it up here. Slayer. Rain and Blood. And so here it is. Rain and Blood. No. Is Piece by Piece the first song? I think it is. No, that's the second song. Angel of Death. First song from Rain and Blood by Slayer here on CoinMetal. And that was Sixth with Vivid. And so, I got one more for us to close this one out. And it just happened to work out that way. Anyway, it's on decrypt.co. Someone just sent $1 billion in Bitcoin. That was with a B for billion. Paid only $3 in fees. And this is by Jeff Benson. And it was authored on October 26, 2020. Yes, penis. In back-to-back transactions this morning, 45,671 Bitcoin, worth $602 million, and 43,185 Bitcoin, worth $570 million, left a Zappo account to other wallets. That's over $1.1 billion in Bitcoin, and for a total transaction fee of $3.54. Though the same account sent the funds, they went to two different unknown addresses. It's not unusual for Zappo wallets to send large chunks of Bitcoin, just usually not this big. In the past week, 4,000 Bitcoin and 1,000 Bitcoin amount have left Zappo wallets, for instance, but the size of these transactions dwarfs that. Quote, there are multiple reasons for large crypto transfers like this. The most obvious one is that Zappo is moving funds to cold storage for safekeeping. My Ether wallet CEO Kasala Hemichandra, my apologies, told Decrypt, quote, the other reason could be that the owner of these funds is ready to diversify. Coming from the Ethereum side, I'd like to assume that the owner is preparing to move the funds to Ethereum or as ETH or using RenBTC. With large transactions too, there's always a chance that there's a security vulnerability being exploited. Regardless of the reason, the same transaction would be infeasible at a bank, at least for an individual. While an automated clearinghouse ACH transfer, which takes days to clear, would be free to most banks, customers would face daily and or monthly limits. Even Chase Bank, which has a very generous policy among banks, limits users to sending no more than $25,000 per day. Sending $1.172 billion would take 128 years, and that's assuming Chase decided to stay open on weekends. Pursuing a wire transfer has two advantages. First, domestic transfers can usually move funds during the same day. Second, customers can send more. Chase Bank allows up to $250,000 each day for personal accounts, meaning it would only take about 13 years to send all that money, assuming again there were no weekends or holidays. And thanks to a discount for sending wires online domestically, it would cost a minimum of $117,200. Zappo did not respond to a Decrypt request for comment. Bummer. Although it's not like they could really tell you all that much about it. But yeah, so there you go. If you needed a better selling point for Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, I can't really imagine one. You know, and the fact of the matter is that there are plenty of coins out there that have enough volume in circulation right now for this transfer to have been possible on them for even cheaper than if they were done on Bitcoin. So, and most of us here in crypto don't have the same volume limitations that others do. You know, as this article exemplifies, if this were, you know, a JP Morgan or a Chase Bank. If they were a Chase Bank customer, they would have been waiting years to have this transfer go through. And that's, of course, assuming that there aren't like higher order transfers that they could do. And I'm sure there are. But they would most likely have to file a suspicious transaction report concerning it just because of the volume. And again, that comes with fees and bullshit and oversight and friction and taxation. And of course, none of that applies in this case because it was transferred via Bitcoin. And so, I mean, again, if you need a better vote of confidence or something more to like drive your desire as far as, you know, what you want to invest in, I can't really think of anything that is that much better. You know, I mean, really, try and find another currency or another medium that you could have done it just as quickly for as cheaply. I don't think it exists. And it is with that I would like to close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. Watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And so as far as our last dance is concerned, I have not picked anything out. but I think this one will suit. Clutch. How to Shake Hands. Last Dance. Here on CoinMetal. Thank you again for listening, and you all have an excellent evening. Good night.